You're listening to The Flickcast, a podcast about stuff nerds love. I'm Chris Ulrich, and joining me, Joe Dilworth. Hey, Joe, what's happening, man?
Hey, it's I'm here and I'm feeling much better. I
Yeah,
know it's kind of a weird thing to say right now, but I am feeling much better.
no, you sound
So,
you sound really good. When I can hear you, we're having some audio difficulty, just hearing each other, so it should be interesting to see how this goes. I'm confident
yes.
that we can work out the technical difficulties. I don't know. This might be too inside podcasting for you folks at home, but the way we record the show is Joe is in a different place than I am, so he records his audio locally, and I record mine locally, which means on our own computers. And then I splice it together later because I'm just that good. So, but we also have to talk. So we're talking over Discord, and sometimes Discord doesn't cooperate. So that's why we're having these problems today. But anyway, that's
Well,
all.
yes, I do like movies. Crit? No, I'm just kidding. So I was
Hi,
gonna.
that's
so
clever. That's so clever.
yeah. So sometimes if our conversations seem a little weird and not in sync, that's why. So
Yes, I'm not Justin Timberlake. Was he in Sync? I can't remember. Or was he? I don't remember.
Justin Timberlake. He was in
Backstreet Boys. Anyway,
Southland Tales, which I really like.
I feel like Justin Timberlake has sort of peaked around the movie about Facebook, where he's like, you know what's cool? $1 billion, because that was a pretty good line. So
He's not wrong.
he's not
'Cause,
wrong. It is cool. $1 billion is cool. Uh,
yeah.
Unfortunately, he was playing a not so nice person. So anyway, on today's show, we're going to talk about the Oscars a little bit, even though we don't really care for the Oscars that much. We're going to talk about a little bit more about Peacemaker, maybe some Star Trek, maybe some stuff about Spielberg. We don't know. We're just winging it this week. Not a lot of things have happened in the
Yes.
entertainment world. I mean, there's other things going on in the world, obviously, which are certainly more important than what we're talking about right here. But this is not a show about that kind of thing, so we probably won't get into that. But there are things going on in the world, and we are aware of that. And no disrespect to anything that's happening, but we do, do a podcast about nerdy stuff. So we're going to try to do that a little bit. So anyway, I was excited to find out that Peacemaker will get a second season. And I don't know if we touched on this last week because I don't think it was announced until after you and I spoke about it. But that's pretty exciting.
I found it interesting that they announced that James Gunn is going to write and direct all episodes, although they didn't tell us how many. I'm expecting it'll probably be another 8 episodes again. But yeah, I think I don't know. I thought that the directors that were not him, was like three of them, did a fine job. So and it was a seamless show. But maybe he's just like, you know what? I think I can do this, and I just want to do the whole thing myself.
Yeah,
I don't
is
know.
is it sad that I can't remember that we did probably talk about this last week? I'm
Yeah,
it's
I think
weird.
we
There's
did,
there's a
but
lot of things going on that have distracted me this past week. So, but yes, we did speak about it because I remember you saying specifically that he would write and direct all episodes. So that must have been announced. We do listen to the show, folks, and I personally listen to it, 20 times, 30 times when I'm editing it. So it's I don't know why I can't remember things, but
I
anyway,
don't. It's okay though. I have mad love for this show, and I'm
me
I'm
too.
okay with repeating that it's getting a second season. Although, I mean, at this point, he's well into Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, so who knows when he's going to shoot it and when we're going to get to see it.
Right.
I'm guessing by I would imagine next year at some point we'll be able to see it.
Well, the other thing is we can't assume that everyone who's listening right now also listened last week. This could be your first time listening to the podcast. So if you are listening for the first time, thank you, first of all. And second of all, we did talk about Peacemaker last week, but you know what? We can talk about it again, like Joe said. I'm excited. We did speculate a little bit about what was going to come in the second season, and I know now it's all
Yeah.
coming back to me that I wanted to see Vigilante's family, and I remember now. See,
Oh, that's right.
it just took me a minute, folks. Sorry, I just
I'll say this though. I'm going to predict that Jennifer Holland is coming back.
yes, she and James Gunn are married now, are going to get married. So I imagine
Yes.
not that she wouldn't come back if they weren't married, because I thought she did a great job. She didn't just get the gig because of him, I'm sure.
No, 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 no.
And I'm not being facetious. I truly believe that she's a good actress. But I think that that's nice. You know what? It's nice. It's nice when people can get together and they can work together. Because back in the day, I tried to work with my ex, and that should tell you something. No, that's not why we broke up. But we did work together briefly, and you can work with people sometimes if they're your significant other, and sometimes you can't. We just couldn't work together, unfortunately. So it happens.
Yeah, and I'll make the bold prediction that John Cena is going to return for the second season. Is that
John who?
um, Kenna, Sena. I'm not sure how to pronounce his
I
last
think it's
name.
Kenna. Yes, John Kenna.
Yeah.
So yeah, he'll probably come back. But you know who's going to be the real star this season in season two? I mean, is Eagly. I think Eagly will. We're going to get an Eagly origin story at some point.
I still think we need a, spin-off of Eagly, but
Maybe you
that's
know
just
what?
me.
Maybe that's the spinoff he's talking about. Just an all Eagly
That
show.
could be. That could be. Yeah, because he was like, well, it's kind of connected to Suicide Squad,
It is.
and it's super secret. Um, but of course, the hope is that someday Disney will buy DC, and then we can get an Eagly and Rocket Raccoon show. That would be great.
That would be cool. Yeah, I don't know that Disney is going to buy DC, Warner Brothers, or whatever. It's hard. There has to be like more than one company producing content, right?
Yeah, I think Warner is. I don't know. Comic books is going through a weird thing right now too, especially with the whole Amazon really screwing up Comixology. Because now all your comics are on Kindle and you can't find them, and you have no idea how to read them or subscribe or anything. That's
Yeah,
another story. But
I saw that actually.
uh,
We could touch on that a little bit. I was a Comixology subscriber from way back,
yeah,
and
yeah,
it sort of dropped off. I think I dropped off when Amazon bought it. I mean, I like some things that Amazon does. I mean, I buy stuff from Amazon sometimes, and I certainly like Audible.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, there are alternatives to Audible, obviously, but it's the easiest because I already have an Amazon subscription.
Sure,
But
sure.
yeah, they apparently screwed up Comixology. Do you know more details about what happened?
Well, I mean, yeah, I actually kind of went to Comixology last night, and yeah, like you, I haven't used it in a long time. I heavily used it for quite a while, and even subscribed to books and stuff like that. And so basically, they're I don't know. I don't even know what it is anymore. You can read your comics through the Kindle app apparently, except that I haven't found a way to actually get to my comics. They are very good about letting you know all the stuff you can buy and all the stuff you can subscribe to. But I haven't actually found my comics yet. Granted, I didn't spend a large amount of time, but it shouldn't take like a degree in computers and coding in HTML to be able to figure out where the hell your stuff is that you bought, right?
So it's
So
it's all combined in the Amazon Kindle app now, kind of thing. Is that what happened?
yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, basically. I think there's still a separate Comixology app, but
Oh,
that's going away eventually.
right.
So
Well,
if you
yeah,
got
they want to keep it all in house
yeah,
or under the same roof. That makes sense because you can, Amazon is about buying stuff, right? So ideally,
yeah.
it would all be in the same app where you can buy books or comics or whatever. So that makes sense, I guess. But they
So
apparently
here,
didn't do a very good job transitioning.
yeah, and here's kind of the problem. I have the same problem with this that I had when Windows 8 came out. I'm a Windows fanboy, right? But
I know. Yeah,
uh,
it's a
when
true,
Windows
true,
8,
true Windows fan.
yeah, exactly. When Windows 8 came out, they did away. They started that whole tiles thing, but
Mm.
they got rid of basically the classic and original start menu. And I am all for innovation and upgrading and advancing and stuff like that, but you don't do that, in my opinion. You don't do that by forcing people, by removing functionality that they're used to. You can make it look prettier. That I'm great with that, but just reducing and eliminating functionality is fine. I mean, it is not fine. So I think in this case, it was a serious misstep that they could have gradually moved people to where they wanted them to. Right? There's an interim you could have done, like, you know, okay, so now Comixology is part of Amazon, so it's going to look a little different, look a little bit like Amazon, but here's where your stuff still is. You can still get there this way, and then you gradually kind of move people over. You don't just go, "Hey, good luck finding your stuff."
Yeah, I'm sure.
So,
I'm sure I own comics on Comixology, and I probably should go look for them. But yeah, I mean, a lot of the complaints are what you're talking about. People can't find stuff, or they can't discover new things. And I was reading a statistic. It said that the number of sales for digital publishers have dropped like 20 to 70% because of the change. People can't find anything and discover new things and buy new things. So I'm sure they'll work it out because they want to sell stuff. But yeah, it sounds like it's a
yeah,
disaster. And I'm sure it was a case of
yeah,
we need to get this done and rush it. Maybe they rush it through or who knows. But they try. I don't know that, like we've talked about before with films and TV and whatever. I don't know that anybody goes into something with bad intentions necessarily, or at least they're not trying to make a piece of shit program, but or app, but that's how it turned out apparently. So that's too bad. But anyway, it's a
Yeah, I
bummer.
mean, I kind of hope the fallout from this is it will. Um, I sort of hope, and this is a little selfish because I have friends that own comic book stores, but I kind of hope that people that were like me, that were like, I'm going to be all digital, that it'll drive them back to comic book stores because it's like, well, I can't figure out how to even get this stuff digitally anymore. So I
Yeah.
still want to read my characters, so I'm going to go to the store and buy the books. I think the other thing it'll do is, make me, I think it's kind of, in a way, I know everyone keeps saying this, but it seems to me to be kind of the death knell for the monthly single issue thing because that's the way storylines are written now in comics anyway, 6 issues, so you can collect it in a trade paperback. And I have a feeling it's going to wind up being we're going to get collections of books and things like that, and here's a trade paperback of this storyline for this character as opposed to monthly issues. So I don't know. It's
Well, I think that as soon as it becomes not economical to print things, probably. I mean, I don't know. You're talking about digital
yeah,
delivery versus print delivery, but
right, right.
there must be a reason that they keep printing comics because they must make money on them still. So that means they'll continue to do that. But yeah, I think you're right. Maybe in some ways, the idea of although I don't know, man, because a lot of people have been talking about how it's not so bad to maybe have to wait a week, for episodic episodes. People are talking about shows like HBO Max is doing. Like a lot of people are talking about Euphoria, for example. Euphoria comes out every week, right? And people are like talking about it. They're water coolering this shit. And nobody talks about shows necessarily. There's not a lot of buzz for things that drop all at once. So maybe we're seeing a shift, I don't know, back to episodic stuff coming out once a week. That's one of the things that was great about Peacemaker. We even talked about it's like, oh, what's going to happen next week? Next week on Peacemaker, or these shows that are all coming out weekly. So maybe there's still a market and there's still hunger for, you know, episodic having to wait for patience. Patience is rewarded at some point. So I don't know. Maybe you'll still see single issues. I hope. I hope they do. So
I just know that Amazon has made it. Well, they
sorry, that was
they've
a lot. That was a lot to drop on y'all at once. Sorry.
well, yeah, well, I mean, Amazon is Amazoned it in the way that they've made it like super easy for you to buy stuff, not necessarily for you to be able to read it though, and that's just really
Well,
annoying.
yeah,
And
because they
especially
don't care
like,
if you
I
read
mean,
it.
I
They want
don't,
you to buy it. They don't care about the other part of it, right?
yeah, I mean, they don't seem to care once you buy it. It's like whatever. Now it's up to you to figure out how to do it, I guess.
Yeah,
And
we
like
got your
here,
money, so
uh,
fuck you.
yeah, like I said, what about all the stuff that I've already bought? I don't know where to find that right now, and I've bought quite a bit through them. So it's
I
a frustrating,
do you buy
irritating experience.
do
But
you buy physical media at all now?
I actually do buy some physical media. I I kind of went way on the other side of it for a while, where I was like, I'm only going to buy digital because I want to be able to consume what I want when I want. But turns out not everything is available digitally. So I still do buy some Blu-rays of things that I really like. I don't buy them to the extent that I probably used to. I used to be like, oh, I like that movie. I'm just going to buy it on Blu-ray. Um, Now some of the stuff I buy on digital, but then there's some stuff that I'm just like, oh, I want the super fancy special edition with all the bells and whistles and the statues and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to buy that. I don't do that as much as I used to. Um, Music, oddly enough, I still, especially from my favorite band, Marillion, I have to put in a plug there. Music, I still buy physically, mainly because I've kind of gotten into I got pulled into the vinyl craze. So,
Oh boy.
yeah, and it's kind of fun to put on a record and stuff like
It
that.
is
So,
fun. No one will understand that who's never done it, but it is fun to pull it out and you have to listen to the whole thing and then if you want to hear the other side, you got to get up and flip it over.
yeah, I mean, I'm certainly not like vinyl sounds better. I'm not like, was it Nick Cage in The Rock? Uh,
It doesn't necessarily
Vinyl just sounds better. It's like, no, it doesn't. But
the only when they say, I think what they mean maybe, and you can correct me if it doesn't jive with your experience. I think you get more of soundstage effect. I do, at least, from vinyl, because you can hear imperfections, so it sounds more quote unquote real. I don't know if that's true, but
Well, I mean, so
I don't know.
I'm also of the opinion that all the things that people say they can hear and all the differences they can hear and stuff, that's not entirely true all the time. I mean, unless you're, I mean, I guess with headphones and an enclosed space with no other sounds going on and all that, sure, you can probably hear that. But when you're like on the bus with your headphones on, listening to your phone, whether it's coming through as an MP3 or FLAC, I don't think you're going to be able to tell the difference. So, I mean, yeah, there's purists, but again, unless you're like gonna consume your stuff and listen to your music all by yourself in some kind of like well isolated room with soundproofing and things like that, I call BS on. Well, I can tell the difference between. I'm like, no, you can't.
Well,
So
even if you can tell a difference, it's the difference is negligible, at least to me. Well, it also depends on how old you are too, because as you get older, your ears get worse. Like I was surprised to find, I did one of those ear tests where they play different frequencies. I was surprised to find out that I can hear higher frequencies than most people my age, and I can actually hear almost as high frequencies as my son, who's only 8, which was surprising to me because his ears are obviously much younger and better. So when I was playing, like Apple does this thing on Apple Music, Apple Lossless, where you can listen to the music, but you have to change your thing and whatever. And then I can just listen to it, and I can tell the difference between lossless and just regular streaming, but not that
yeah,
much of a difference,
well,
and not for any real reason other than I can hear because I have really good headphones, and it just. But for most
yeah.
people listening to shit on, like you said, on the bus with Apple, with headphones or just whatever Bluetooth and shit, and then it doesn't matter. So
Well, I mean, I have like ripped my so there are I have quite a few CDs of music of things like soundtracks and stuff like that, or like special edition or fan club things that I've purchased over the years that aren't available digitally just because of the nature of what they are. And I do rip rip those so that I can upload them so that I can listen to them, when I'm out and about. Um, and I'll admit I rip things, FLAC, lossless, and I can. So I'll say this: I've ripped them in FLAC, I've ripped them in like MP3, and I played them back to back, and I can tell the difference in quality slightly there. But when you upload it to a service like Google Play Music or Google YouTube Music, whatever the hell it's called now, or iTunes, it's going to play it back to you in its best format. So it kind
right,
of doesn't matter what you rip and upload stuff at. It's still, I'm assuming YouTube Music does the same thing as iTunes. I believe iTunes like goes, oh, well, I'm going to look for this in my library. I'm going to play it back to you in what I have it. And if it's something it doesn't recognize, it's going to do its best to play it back in whatever quality you've set iTunes on your phone or computer or whatever to listen to. So
yeah.
it kind of really doesn't matter unless you're going to keep it on your own home server what you rip your stuff at. So
Home server, that's adorable. Yeah, in Apple Music, they have a thing where you can set the minimum quality. Like I have all mine set to lossless because I don't mind the bandwidth streaming because I have unlimited data, so who cares? But when I really want to get the highest quality, when I was doing my experiment, I had to have a separate digital analog converter, which is the box I use for podcasting anyway, so it works out. But I had to set everything at the highest possible level, and I have a hardwired connection to the internet because it won't stream over Bluetooth because it's not the Bluetooth can't handle the bandwidth. So that in that particular scenario, with my really good headphones, because I have really good headphones because I'm a nerd, and I listen and I'm like, wow, that sounds a lot better. But then in normal use, like I'm streaming it to my stereo or something, and it's blasting in my office, then no one can tell. I can't. My ears are not trained to find that, and I'm sure that people who have trained ears can tell. But for the majority of consumers, it's not going to make a bit of difference. Maybe psychologically, if it's just lossless, you're gonna be like, oh well, this must be better. So I don't know. It doesn't seem
yeah,
like it makes that much of a difference. I still love it because I like that minutia, and I'm a nerd, and I like the sort of how can I figure this out and make this cool, and have my 30-year-old stereo work with my, Apple shit from today and my headphones and the digital and all this. I want all of that to work together. So it does. And I have Bluetooth streaming attached to my stereo. Although I was tempted to take it apart and like solder some shit in there because I've seen a lot of videos about how to do that, but I didn't want to break something. So I got an external Bluetooth thing. But I can stream from my phone, but it's over Bluetooth, so it's not lossless anyway. So anyway,
Well, I mean, I guess the lesson is just play your stuff extremely loud, kids.
well,
That's
that's what it is. Yeah, extremely loud, and don't worry about it because there's a difference if you have a treat, like you said, if you have a treated room, and which I sort of do for recording, but it's still, I mean, it's coming over the speakers. It's still going to be different than on headphones, and it's still going to, because remember, everybody, when people are mastering this music, they're listening on headphones for the most part, right? So they can get every little nuance. So anyway,
just, especially if you have headphones on, just play it really loud so you'll kill your hearing and it won't matter anymore. No, I'm just kidding. Um, so I think the other kind of dirty, well, I wouldn't say dirty little secret, but the other, I guess, component to the physical media versus digital debate is there's also the there's also the possibility that your digital stuff might disappear because of rights.
well, that's, yeah.
See, I don't really understand that. It seems like once you buy something, I don't know. I don't know how even if like Amazon lost the rights to that, how I don't. I guess I don't understand that whole thing
Well,
because
once again, it's time for contract time on the podcast.
yeah. So I mean, I guess if you want to make sure that
Read the
anything you
license agreement.
purchase, yes, anything you purchase is forever, and as long as you want it, you need to buy the physical media
Well,
because
technically, when you buy, like you buy a Blu-ray, you only get the license to watch that. You technically, if you read the contract, these, read the agreement, you don't
the
own
fine
the,
print.
yeah, if
Yeah.
you read the fine print, you don't own that intellectual property. You're just sort of renting it. Yes, you bought the disc, but you don't own the contents of the disc. So
Right.
because IP has to be protected. I have no problem with that, but it's just but you, like you said, like I have a lot of movies that I bought on Apple Movies, for example, and if Apple goes out of
Right.
business next year, will I be able to access those movies? I was looking at it like, God, I have a lot of movies in here. So if you want to keep stuff, buy CDs, buy albums, buy Blu-rays, buy whatever you want, and or download that shit to your computer and store it. But that's a lot of files to store.
I
Like if I wanted to download every
yeah.
movie I bought from Apple, that would be a lot of hard drives. But that's fine. I would do it, but still.
Well, I will say this in the past when services have gone out of business or merged or whatever, there has been like a period of time where they're like, well, you can download all your stuff locally and have your copy and all that kind of stuff. But again, like you said, if I was to do that today with like, if Google went out of business and they're like, download, you have 2 months to download all your movies, that would be that'd be an undertaking, and my ISP would probably hate me.
Well, you hate them, so it's mutual.
Well, yes, I do. So I just, yeah, I think you're right, though. I do remember, like, even with Blu rays, it's like the studio could say, you know what? We don't like that print or whatever. We're going to recall all your Blu rays or something. I don't know. I guess
Yeah.
it is the same thing, but it's kind of like, well, you're going to have to come to my house and pry it out of my cold dead hands if you want.
Well, that's extreme. I might just not say I have one. Oh, it fell in the river. No, I don't know.
Yeah, no, the dog ate it.
The dog ate my homework. Yes, yeah. That's why I still buy for things I really care about. Like really care about, I will buy a disc. Or
Yeah.
fortunately, I get sent a lot of stuff, so I just keep all that. That's a lot of physical product. But yeah, I think if a Google was having problems, someone would buy them. I guess that's what I feel about Apple too. Because if Apple really was in desperate, dire straits, I feel like some other company would step up and buy them and keep all that stuff in place.
Well,
So
yeah,
I
because
doubt
that would
that.
be kind of their big asset, right? That
Well, yeah,
technology.
I doubt that Apple
So
is gonna go out of business. They were
no,
on the brink for a while there, folks. If you remember, I say folks. I don't know why, but
folks.
I don't think that's going to happen anymore. I don't think Google's going to go anywhere. I don't think Amazon's going to go anywhere really. So I think it's
No.
probably okay. I had this conversation with John Carl, our guest from Cyclops is Waiting for You podcast a couple weeks ago. We were talking about because they host their podcast on a service that's I guess owned by Spotify, Anchor, I think it is.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
I know. Well, here's the thing about Anchor, which was interesting though. Anchor is totally free. So
Oh, interesting.
you can upload all your stuff, your podcasts, and they help you distribute it to all the other podcast platforms. And they provide all this stuff for you. They can help hook you up with. And this is not a we're not sponsored by Anchor. We're not
No,
hosted
no.
by them. But I just thought it was interesting. And we were having this conversation. I'm like, well, how can they make money? Why is it free? How can it be free? And how is that a sustainable, business model? And yeah, Spotify has a lot of money, obviously, and they can piss it away if they want to, obviously.
Right.
But we won't get into that. But and we were talking about it, he's like, yeah, freemium is the word he used. I thought that was interesting. So you get a lot of premium features for free because they know that if you decide to go for ads and stuff, I guess they can, they get money for that. And they just do it because they want to have a lot of stuff on their platform, which I thought was
Yeah.
fascinating. But it's totally free. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. And now I'm
Well,
like, well, what if it goes away? He's like, well, it's not going to go away. Spotify's not going to go out of business. So that makes
well,
sense.
I mean, here's the other side of it too. I mean, I don't know what it would be, but eventually there's going to be another form. I mean, it's all formats, right? I mean, how many? I bet you can name at least 5 or 6 movies you have bought in multiple formats over the years because you
Oh, sure.
wanted that, right? So I have a box still,
Star
several
Wars.
boxes still. Yeah, I still have several boxes of VHS tapes.
I have my
Big
definitive collection laser disc of Star Wars, damn you.
Right. So, Star Wars, the original trilogy,
Yeah,
I've
and
bought multiple
the
times.
freaking black
There's,
box from with THX sound even.
yeah, exactly. So it's kind of like, sure, yeah, the digital file could go away or the digital part, but like what in 10 years, the new hologram versions, right? So you're gonna, I don't
Right.
know.
Well, people can
I
make a lot of
think,
money on remastering. If you want to make money in the world, you want to start a
there
business
you
that
go.
does remastering. Because I know people like audio engineer types and stuff who just they make most of their money remastering stuff because of all the music that was recorded back in the day, on tape.
Yep.
And they're
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
we need to remaster this. And now we're doing it in Dolby Atmos, which is a new thing. And now we're going to do it in something else. But you're right. When's the 3D holographic version coming out? Because I want to watch that. But here,
Right. So,
speaking
I
about
don't know.
that, which I think is hilarious, I was looking through something recently and I found a box with VHS tapes in it. And one of the VHS tapes was Star Wars. So I have a
Nice.
VHS copy of Star Wars still. It doesn't even look like it was like opened. It almost sealed, which is kind of interesting. So I have that, and then laser disc, and then of course regular DVD and Blu-ray and digital. So that's what 5 formats you said? Yeah. So I don't have a
Right.
beta copy anywhere, although I'm sure they exist somewhere. You probably find one on eBay if you really want to. But
Yeah, and ultimately too, anything that's like hugely popular probably isn't gonna go away. I
well, that's
mean,
true too. You'll always be able
you
to.
know,
Well, that was the whole thing, and I know you've probably had this question before, being as you're a tech person. Backup, right? People used to back up their computers and stuff to like CDs, and they used to back up to DVDs, right? And they burned all their data to a DVD, or now they put it on a hard drive, or now they put it in the cloud or whatever. But I was always told that, oh, CDs only last 10 years or 50 years or whatever. So eventually that'll be like, I don't know about you, but I had a zip drive back in the day. Remember those?
oh, zip drives. Yeah. So
So I have a lot
I
of stuff on a zip. I found a box of zip disks, and I'm like, what
well,
the fuck is this
yeah.
stuff? Yeah,
I mean,
crazy.
I was gonna say, I think I still have I probably going all the way back to even the larger floppy disks. I think I have something of every single format from the last,
Yeah.
30 years out
Yeah,
there
my
in the
first
garage.
computer at
So,
home was an Apple II Plus, so we had the big floppy disks. I have some of those still, and then I had the smaller floppy disks, obviously Mac and Windows side,
yeah.
uh, and then SideQuest. Do you remember SideQuest drives?
Oh,
I had
yes.
SideQuest disks, and then I had zip disks, and then I had I don't know whatever else. And now it all goes to the cloud or it goes to whatever. And I also back up. I still back up to hard drives, but now they have the hard drive interfaces now like Thunderbolt 4 or some shit. So anyway,
Yeah, my old my inner personal security or personal data security guy pops up every time, like places that I work. They're like, oh, we're moving everything to the cloud and we're not going to have any physical servers anymore. And I'm like, are you sure you want to do that? Because can we just have one
Yeah.
physical server,
One
please?
one local copy too, and one, no, I get
Yeah.
the idea. I get the idea of backup. Backup's really important. If people don't know that, I'm sure they do by now. But having it in more than one place is really important. Like I have a backups here, and this might be getting too nerdy for people, but I'm sorry. But I have backups in the house. It also goes to Backblaze, which is the online server. So I'm a
Well,
weirdo.
and I'm like, I'll set up my own cloud backup, and I'm like, isn't that just the same as like just backing up to a local server?
Well, that's why you got
Like,
to have
why am
more
I
than one.
making it more elaborate than it needs to be?
Well, that's why I have it. I have on site, I have an off site, and then I have cloud. So I have three. Not that my data is
Right.
so important. It's just I have a fuck ton of, you know,
Yeah.
audio and video files, and whatever created over 1,000 years, and so many photos that I've scanned too, and so many photos that I've taken, like gigabytes of
Yeah.
photos. So it gets backed up, in three
Yeah.
different places,
Well,
and I'm happy to say I've never needed to restore anything. So that's pretty cool.
I have a library of all the interviews I've ever done on an external drive that doesn't do anything else, right? So,
Yeah.
but I also have them backed up to the cloud. So,
Well, that's good.
yeah,
And if we're talking nerdy backup strategies, I mean, I think that my IT background is rearing its ugly head. So it's like you need to have a backup in your own house, right? Like attached to your computer, and then one other thing, like offsite. They call it offsite, right? So it's like in the cloud or wherever, which is at the minimum, because your house could burn down. I hate to say it like that or whatever, and then you've lost your computer and your backup. But if you have it in the cloud, at least that's something, right? So that's good. So do that, people.
yeah. So
I,
yeah, so this has been an audiophile podcast.
this has been a tech support show. Yeah.
Yes.
That's okay. You know what, man? It's all the same. I think that the discussion about file formats and discussion about technology, audio tech is fun, and it's this is about nerd stuff, and nerds love tech. I know they do. I do.
I know I do.
So,
Yeah, exactly.
and
So
I think that people would be interested to know how, maybe how I Blu-ray stream to my stereo from 20 years ago or 30 years ago. It's a Denon receiver that I had from like at least 20 years ago, maybe more. And I have speakers, physical speakers, and my turntable and my tape deck and my CD player. It's all connected. But I also have a Bluetooth module that allows me to stream from my phone directly to it. I don't have a DAC though, because those are too expensive. And although technically I do, I guess, because my DAC, if you want to call it that, digital analog converter, I guess it means, is my Focusrite box, which is for doing the podcast. Because audio sound is, your voice is analog, Joe, and then it gets converted to digital. That's pretty exciting.
can I just say that I don't think 8K is a real thing because you basically shoot the highest resolution you shoot in is 4K, but that's
Well,
anyway.
that's twice as much, isn't it?
I guess that's another debate for another time. But
Yeah, I don't know. I still haven't even bought a 4K TV though. So that was that tell you?
yeah, and turn off smooth motioning, everyone.
Yeah, for God's sake, no smooth motion. That's ridiculous. For movies, at least. For sports, it's probably fine. But anyway, so I did see that a lot of things. We'll switch to the Academy Awards for a second. I did see that a lot of things, especially Dune, got a lot of nominations. That's exciting to see, sort of a sci-fi epic get recognized, because it's not. I don't know. It doesn't seem like sci-fi films get a lot of love from the Academy, which is fine. But I was happy to see Dune get a lot of noms, and I was happy to see did you watch Power of the Dog?
No.
That's okay.
Um, honestly, I didn't even know that there was going to be anything announced about the Academy Awards until after it was all over my news feeds after the
Yeah,
fact. So
it
I was
blew
just
up your
kind of like,
feeds.
yeah, I'm like, oh, look, the Academy Awards are announced, and I guess I have the same problem I've always had. It's like it seems like, and maybe I think it's always kind of been this way. It's like, well, we're going to pick the things and nominate the things that we think should be there, and the things that'll make. I always feel like the people nominating them are like, oh, let's pick the things that'll make us look like we're smart and erudite and know things about movies instead of like what is actually good. Does that make any sense? I don't
Well,
know,
that's probably
but
what most well, I don't say most film critics, but a lot of film critics, some critics, and art. I mean, it's like criticizing art in general. It's like, how do you go about criticizing art? Because art is subjective. It's like, I enjoy this and you don't. So here's
Right.
your opinion about why it sucks or why it's amazing, and that's great. And I'm happy for you. And if it touched you in that way or moved you or whatever, I didn't necessarily have that same reaction. So yeah, I think in some ways it's that way, but also keep in mind that as far as technical awards, the technical people nominate the other technical people, so
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
they kind of know, oh, that was really good X Y Z, or that was really excellent. Because you can't have something like Dune, for example, and not have it nominated for visual effects, because visual effects, especially I mean, the Thopter alone should win the Academy
Well,
Award.
yeah,
That
yeah.
thing is kick ass. So I feel
Yes.
like they're going to win. I don't know if they're going to take away or take any, you know, I hate to say it, they're not going to take too many performance awards. I think that Hair of the Dog, that's what I keep calling it, is gonna win a lot of that stuff, because it is quite a good movie, and Cumberbatch is great in it, and Jesse Plemons is great, and they're actually all the performances are extraordinary. So I imagine it'll win the majority of the awards, and it's well directed. One thing I'm pissed about, which I think is annoying, is that a lot of the awards are going to be given off screen, like editing, for example, is going to be given off screen. And if anybody thinks editing's not important, they're on drugs, man, because editing is super important.
Oh, it totally is. I mean, ask Marsha Lucas how important
Well,
editing is.
I think it's the same thing with the Academy, with everybody else. They're trying to make it as palatable to the masses as possible, because they're worried that people aren't going to the movies, people aren't doing this because we were in a pandemic or whatever. So now we need to bring out the stars, and we need to keep the show short. Short. People have a short attention span, and my argument is, if it's interesting stuff, people will watch. If it's not interesting, they don't care how long it is. It could be 15 minutes of the most boring shit. No one's going to watch that. But if it's 3 or 4 hours of interesting stuff, then people are going to watch it.
Yeah, I mean, I you're giving awards for the best of something, so I don't think it should be like, hey, best picture is this, best screenplay is this, and move along. I think if they're winning, if they're being recognized for being the top of their game, then for whatever category, there should be time spent with it. And yeah, that may mean that the show is 6 hours long. I don't know that you necessarily need to broadcast all of that. So maybe, I don't know, maybe it doesn't need to be broadcast live, which parts of it aren't going to be this year. But, I argue this in from the perspective that they don't, Academy Awards don't really matter to me, right? So it seems kind of funny for me to say, no, they should be spending time. It should be like an all day affair.
Well, I don't know if it
But
should. I don't know if it should be all day. I feel like everyone's work should be respected, and that's why I'm a person who sits through the credits when I go to the movies, which has been a long time. I sit through the credits at home too. Damn it!
yeah,
But if you're not gonna if those awards aren't as important, then maybe none of them are important. Maybe you should just send a press release. Here's the guys that won. But no, they're doing it for ratings. They're doing it because the celebrities are going to be the draw to people. I want to see what she's wearing or whatever.
right,
But
right.
they'll all be wearing masks, hopefully, or probably not.
Well,
But or not.
probably not this year, but
Not this year. Yeah. Anyway, but who knows? But I'm sure it's a case of we need to get people interested and excited about the movies. And editing is not glamorous. It's about the glamorous actors and the glamorous, to some extent, the directors. We don't want to see any writers on the screen. We don't want to see
well,
cinematography, although it's pretty, but it's not that interesting. So
I
anyway.
wonder if they spent, I don't know, maybe for the broadcast, if they spent more time like, well, here's why editing is important. Here's this movie that you love, that you think is one of the best movies this year, and here's how editing played in that. Because I think, like, for the most part, and hopefully maybe we'll do some podcasts that will shed some light on these things, but I think for the most part people don't understand, well, editing is just taking the scenes that they have and putting it together, and here's your movie. I don't think they understand that it's a craft. I don't think they understand that there's some movies that are a hot mess before the editor gets a hold of it. And yeah, it can go awry, but same thing with writing. It's like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I just think that if they demystified some of this a little bit more, then it might be more interesting for people, and people
Yeah,
might
but
get excited.
people don't want to learn, Joe. Come on.
No, they don't. They don't.
Some people don't. But again, you're watching a show. If you're the kind of person, I think okay. Let me back up. The Academy Awards are for the people who are nominated, and I congratulate
Yes.
all the nominees. I think it's awesome. I know people who were nominated, not this year, I don't think, but in past they didn't win. But I know some people who won. That's great, and I've seen their Academy Awards. They've even touched them. It's like, wow, this is amazing. Good for you. But it's something that the public at large doesn't really have a grasp of because they don't know what editing is. They don't know what direction is necessarily. Most people don't, and I mean, they know that writing is. Maybe some people think that actors just make shit up on the day, which I'm sure some people do think that. So those awards are not as interesting as Best Picture. People can understand what Best Picture means. People can understand what Best Actor means because actors are people they can look at and go, "Oh, I love that guy. He's awesome." And so it's about the spectacle. It's about the glamour, right? It's about the allure of Hollywood, not about some nerd sitting in a room cutting, well, back in the day, standing at an upright cutting film, but now it's like clicking a mouse. That's not interesting. That's boring. And so, to some people, and so there's no real reason to educate when you only have a certain amount of time and you're trying to get ratings and trying to restore the glamour and excitement of Hollywood. You're not gonna I mean, so I understand the decision. I think it's a shitty decision, but I understand it. So, and as far as the Academy Awards being relevant, I mean, they're relevant again to the people who are nominated, and they're relevant to the box office because traditionally, as you know, movies that get Academy Award nominations or win, there's a bump in sales. So, and name recognition, and it's free publicity, and so that's why it happens. It's a business at the end of the day. So,
Yeah, I almost wonder if I've been thinking,
oh,
and that's
don't do
always
that.
dangerous. I know. I almost wonder if it is if it would be better because I feel like the real kind of celebration of the craft of filmmaking and recognition of things that better deserve recognition, if that's a thing, comes from festivals. And I always almost wonder if like the if certain festivals throughout the year were like broadcast, like and given attention like the Academy Awards, so that when the Academy Awards came around, people were really like, oh, so now I understand why this movie or this writer or this director, because for the last 3 years this writer has just been making these fantastic movies. Now I understand why his, you know, Death in Congo movie is such a huge thing because he's really good. I don't know. I don't think there's a solution to it. I just know that I don't really give that much about the Academy Awards anymore. So
No, I know,
anyway,
but it would behoove us. I mean, it would be not behoove us. It's still a thing that
well,
exists
yeah,
and a thing
yes,
we have to acknowledge, obviously, because we
of
do talk
course,
about
yes,
entertainment, and we've had this discussion before, you and I. I don't find it super relevant either. I'm not nominated. I mean, I always would have loved to win one, but
sure,
everybody wants to win, so we can't. We have to acknowledge the fact that it exists. I think that the only thing that's good for the Academy Awards sometimes is that they sometimes spotlight smaller films like Power of the Dog
yeah,
is not a
yeah,
film that everyone is going to go see necessarily, but now it's getting more, it's getting more recognition. And other times they've done that. Smaller films have gotten nominations, or performances by actors in smaller films have gotten recognition, and so that leads people to go discover those films. So it's not completely useless, but in some ways it is kind of useless. So, but it's a thing. It's a factor in Hollywood, and you cannot live in LA like I did for so many years and not go to parties where people are watching the Oscars.
well,
It just
yeah,
happens. And you talk about them, and it's a big deal. And for weeks leading up, there's all the campaigning. There's like back in the day, it was like all in the trades had all the ads for this and that and whatever. And it's a big deal. It's a big deal because it's a big deal to the town. It means money, right? It means
right.
business. That's what it comes down to. And
Well, it's all about the money.
it
We all
is.
know
It is
that.
all about the Benjamins.
Yeah,
So
it's about the mentions. We need the gif of the
yeah.
flipping out the money, that kind of thing.
Let's
So
make it rain. Woo, yeah.
yeah,
So, and that's what I think people forget sometimes. Show business is a bottom line kind of deal, and as entertaining as it is, and as glamorous, quote unquote, as it seems, at the end of the day, it's a bunch of guys in a room doing accounting. Was this thing
yeah, pretty
profitable?
much.
Was
It's
this
a
thing?
business.
It is.
Yes,
Did this thing make money? Okay, well, we can do more of that. Did this thing lose money? Oh, well, fuck, we're not doing that again. So risk is not super. They're risk averse. Let's put it that way. And
right.
anytime a smaller movie gets recognized, I think it's good. I think it's a positive
Yes,
thing. And or a movie like Dune. Dune was a big risk if you think about it. Dune was a giant movie that cost
absolutely.
so much money and it could have failed. People could have been like, fuck this, I'm not watching Dune again. That David Lynch movie was terrible. I'm never going to go back. But it did business and it's getting recognition, which it deserves, especially in the technical categories. Although I think some of the performances were quite good too. But
Yes.
and certainly the direction was quite good. But so although I noticed Jason Momoa didn't get nominated for anything, which I think is a travesty, which just means the Academy Awards are not relevant to me. No.
Yes.
Anyway,
So it's a bottom line. It's a business,
it is. Yeah.
and yeah, it's all about the
It's
Benjamins.
all
That
about
should
the
be the title of
Benjamin.
the episode.
It should be.
Uh,
Yeah. I know, and I know this is tough because you're having trouble hearing me, which is maybe better for you. I don't know,
or the other way around. But
or the other way around. No, I can hear you fine, which is the worst part. I can hear you, man,
right.
but I can't respond. So, anyway, the only other thing I wanted to mention was people are giving Spielberg a hard time, which I think is funny, questioning yet another remake thing where he's talking about remaking or updating Bullet, which is one of my favorite movies. Steve McQueen, awesome movie. If you've never seen Bullet, he's talking about doing a new one, which I think is cool. I think that Spielberg. Why are people questioning Spielberg? I don't get it. It's like the guy is a fucking genius. Like Scorsese, Scorsese doesn't like Marvel movies. Who gives a shit? The guy's a fucking genius. So let Spielberg do whatever he wants. I don't know why people would even have a problem with that, but apparently they do. I don't know. It's just weird to me when those kind of things happen. So like maybe he's just old and not relevant. The kids don't get it. I don't know.
I I think that this is oddly enough. I'm going to relate this to Denis Villeneuve making Dune because I bet Spielberg has always loved the movie Bullet. He's like, I want to make that movie. I want to do more with that character. Just like Denny was probably like, I love Dune. I want to make a Dune movie. So I know everyone rails against remakes and reboots and all that kind of stuff, but uh, I don't know. I mean, Spielberg has been making, if you pare it down to the essential oils, Spielberg basically makes the same movie. It's about characters. It's about characters he likes. It's about characters he wants to bring to life and their interactions. And so I'm not surprised that he's like, here's a movie I've always loved. Here's a character I've always loved. I'm going to make the movie because I'm at the point in my career now where I can do whatever I want, and this is what I want to do. So I'm good with that. I will watch it. I love the original Bullet. I think that's a great movie. I'm a big fan of Steve McQueen movies.
For sure.
Obviously, there's not going to be another Steve McQueen, and all that. Although I don't know the way technology is today, uh,
Well,
who knows?
the funny thing is, I thought that the first person I thought of for the remake was Mark Ruffalo, only because he kind of played that.
Ah,
Well, he played that character that Bullet is based on in the David Fincher movie about the Zodiac,
that's
right?
true.
So he
Yeah,
played. He's like even the white coat and everything that he had back in the day. So that was like I thought of him, but he's. I mean, I'm not trying to say Mark Ruffalo is Steve McQueen. I'm just trying to say that that's the first person I thought of because of that connection with Zodiac. But I
yeah.
would, yeah, I love Bullet. I think it's a great movie for the times, but I'm sure that Mr. Spielberg could do a much greater version. And I wasn't even that. It's like, why do we need another West Side Story? The fucking original was a classic, a
Right.
masterpiece. And now I watch this one, I'm like, wow, he really could. He's a really good director. Wow,
He's a good filmmaker.
he's a good filmmaker.
The
Yeah, it's weird.
o-
So
well, of course, the only thing he has to keep in his version of Bullet is the car, right? So
yeah, oh man, that
I
car's awesome.
mean,
I really wanted that car
you
back.
can't do it with a different car. I'm sorry.
No, and it has to be period too. So I would hope. I hope he
Yeah.
doesn't. I hope the only. Yeah, that was my concern. Is like I hope they don't modernize it. It has to be the same period. It has to be the
Yeah.
same
Yeah.
outfits. It has to be everything. It's going to be so. It's going to be super cool. I mean, you know what? The funny thing is, someone like Spielberg always gets connected to projects, and it probably will never happen. So anyway, I don't. It's
Well,
just
that's true.
another. It's another thing for the nerds to get upset about.
Yeah, I guess it does have to be a period piece. I mean, it would be like remaking The Great Escape, but making it in the Gulf War or something. So That wouldn't quite work, would it?
Well, ironically, you could.
I guess you could.
I mean, you could make Bullet in modern times too, I guess. But
Yeah, but it just
there's a big difference between 1968 and 2022. I just think that you kind of have to go. Plus, that time period was super cool, and I can.
Yes.
I'm just trying to think who it could be because it probably won't be Ruffalo, but I'm just thinking who's going to wear the iconic black sweater and the shoulder holster and and drive the Mustang. I mean, I don't know. It's got to be someone.
Ryan Gosling. He's the go-to for that. Or Ryan Reynolds. See, there we go.
Nah, I don't think it could be Ryan Reynolds. I think that maybe Ryan Gosling could pull it off. I don't know, but I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to know. I don't know. Maybe it'll be an unknown. Maybe it'll be Armie Hammer's comeback. No, maybe not.
No. Oh, ooh, yeah, maybe not.
I just want to know.
Kevin Spacey's comeback.
There you go. I just want to know. Well, I would see Kevin Spacey as maybe the Robert Vaughn role, maybe Chalmers, but I don't know if it's going to be. No, I don't want Kevin Spacey in this thing. You know what's going to be. By the way, it's going to be Adam Driver. There you go.
Kevin.
It's going to be Adam Driver.
Well, anyway.
You don't think so?
We'll see.
All right. Okay. Well,
that's TBD.
TBD. Yeah, exactly. So, all right. Well, we're gonna let's just mix it up and go to picks now because we're this is gonna be a shorter episode because of the technical problems and we're trying to work this stuff out. And I know Joy. I was gonna say Joy. Joy is getting annoyed. Joe is getting annoyed by the fact that we can't. We're having trouble communicating. Man, we're just not communicating. So
we don't communicate anymore. What's going on?
We don't talk anymore.
No.
Let's go to picks. Do you want to go first?
I'll go first. Last week I picked a franchise. I picked a film franchise, and this week I'm going to pick and I'm quite certain I picked this before a long time ago, but I'm going to pick Star Trek as a franchise, mainly because we lost an original Star Trek cast member from the original pilot recently, Sally Kellerman, who probably is best known from the MASH movie and is amazing. But not only that, but this week we have, as you listen to this, we'll have a new episode of Star Trek Discovery. We'll have Star Trek Picard coming back. And there's so much Star Trek coming out this year that I'm just immensely happy as a Star Trek fan. And I know it's, the people that like to be negative are really angry about that. And there's a lot of people pretty angry about that, but who cares? Star Trek is maybe something that is needed kind of in our day and age, the way the things we're going through in our times. And I don't want to, move the podcast into negative talk, but, Star Trek still shows us that, hey, a couple hundred or 300 or however many years in the future, or 1,000 years in the future even, we're still around. Humanity's still around, and we're doing better. And we've made some better decisions, and we're a better society. So there, to me, it gives us hope. And I'm just a huge fan of the current Star Trek shows because they all have a different tone. And we got a new movie with the Kelvin cast coming out next year, even though they don't know about it, apparently.
Yeah, they didn't seem to know about that. That's kind of funny.
Yeah, I won't go on too much about it, but I will pick this week Star Trek as a franchise and as a symbol of hope as my pick for this week.
I like that. It's like anything's possible. We do need some hope this week for sure. I obviously I love Star Trek, so yeah, it is funny about the Kelvin movie though. I think Paramount just wanted to have somebody to announce, and so they just announced it. That's going to make negotiations a lot more difficult if the cast didn't realize they were in the movie. So anyway, my pick this week is a book by noted author Stephen King, but it's not a typical Stephen King book. It is a book called The Eyes of the Dragon. Published in 1984, it's a Stephen King fantasy book about a boy and his brother and an evil wizard named Flag and dragons with eyes. It's a great book. My son read it and wanted me to read it, and I'm like, wow, this print is really small, and I need my glasses. So what I did is I got the audiobook because I punked out and got the audiobook. But that's okay. I still read the book a little bit, and I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to listen to it. But I was surprised to find that Bronson Pinchot is the person doing the narration for the audiobook, and I was like, oh, Balky from Perfect Strangers, that's great. I no disrespect to him, I was, I love Perfect Strangers, and I think he's a good actor. I've seen him in other stuff, but I was very very impressed about his performance of the book in the audible version. He does a really great job, and I really enjoyed the book. It's not King's. Well, let me put it this way: it was well received by critics, but his like diehard fans, shockingly, did not like it as much because
He should be fired.
it
Cancel him
wasn't
now.
cancel him. Yeah, it wasn't horror, and it
Right.
didn't have really many horror elements, but it does have some of his characters. Like Randall Flagg is the magician in the book, and he appears in several other novels, including The Stand, of course. But the thing that I found interesting too is that the book that King wrote right after this one, in response to his critics, was Misery, about a writer who kills off his most popular character
Uh-huh.
so he can write whatever the fuck he wants, which I thought was pretty funny.
Nice.
Yeah, it's like fuck you, fans, and it didn't seem to hurt his career very much. Stephen King's still doing well, I would imagine. He's like one of those. He's like Spielberg. He's like Stephen King is going to be around forever, immortal, basically. But so anyway, the book is great. It's sort of, I don't want to say juvenile. It's kind of for kids in a way, a little bit. He wrote it for his kids, and it kind of reads that way. So it's not super scary. It's not super, super weird, and no real horror or anything like that. It's basically a story about two brothers and their rivalry, and an evil wizard and stuff like that. It's well done, and I enjoyed it a lot. And I would recommend it to people. Maybe to give to your child and read, but I don't know if at what age. Maybe a little bit older than my son, maybe 13 or 14, because there's a couple of like, I don't want to say innuendo, but it's like the king has got to have an heir, that kind of thing. It's like
Oh
how do
yeah.
they make babies? Well, and he kind of works around it, but it's like they're still talking about boning, which is kids are like, huh, what does that mean? Where do babies come from? And maybe you don't want to have that conversation with your child at this point. I don't know, but anyway, that's my pick this week. Stephen King, Eyes of the Dragon. It's cool. I enjoyed it a lot. So
I Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Stephen King. Lately, I think we mentioned my book of the year last year was Billy Summers by Stephen King, which is a crime noir book as opposed to horror. And I'm also pleased to find out that they're turning that into a TV miniseries. So I definitely will watch that.
yeah.
So yeah, I did not read Eyes of the Dragon, but I will now look it up and give it a shot.
Well, I had never actually heard of it because I've read a lot of Stephen King books. I didn't realize he had taken this foray into fantasy. Um, I mean, I read the Gun. It's funny because there's character names that also appear like in later works, like Roland, and the kingdom sort of appears. And there's actually um, the evil wizard Flag is reading a book, which is actually the Necronomicon, but they don't mention the Necronomicon. But H.P. Lovecraft has a tiny bit, so there's a bit of horror if you like Lovecraft.
Oh,
So
there you
anyway,
go. There you go.
yeah, it's cool. But I would say read it, or the audiobook is definitely worth it because again, Pinchot, amazing.
He does good voices.
Anyway, all right. So find the Flickcast at Spotify, at Google Podcasts, at Apple Podcasts, and all the places you find things. And if you want to rate and review the show, the Apple Podcast is usually the best place for that. We'd appreciate that. Or Spotify ratings are fine too if you have Spotify, if you're not against them. And then you can find Joe and I on the socials. Joe is at What Joe Writes. I am at Chris Yu, and then also Ulrich Picks on Instagram. And you can find us in our collaboration with Whiskey and Waffles on our Discord. But yeah, just go to Linktree/the Flickcast, and you can find whatever you want to do. It's actually linktr.ee. I don't know why they do it that way. /the Flickcast. So you can find all the information there about where to find the show and all that stuff. All the links that you could possibly want. Anything else, Joe?
I think that's probably it. I think we've said enough.
I think we've said enough this week. So for Joe Dorwith, I'm Chris Ulrich. That was the Flickcast. Thanks so much for listening.